It was the famous guitar riffs of Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train that woke me up. A ringtone I'd assigned to my Android device the day that I had purchased it. I looked at my phone's dimly lit screen, trying to focus through the fuzziness of my sleep-interrupted vision to read the name of the son of a bitch that decided to call me at whatever ungodly hour of the night that it was at that moment. As my tired eyes adjusted, I read the name of the late-night caller as private. This was not the first time I'd received a phone call from a private caller, and in fact, I got these calls very often. Usually, it was one of the many scammers trying to get money out of me. The latest I'd ever received a call from them, however, was 8 p.m., and the earliest was 7 a.m. I rolled my eyes and quickly slid my index finger across the reject option, and looked at the time, realizing it was 12 a.m. I turned the screen off and put the phone back on my nightstand, and turned back over to return to sleep when suddenly, Ozzy Osbourne's legendary chords started playing again. What the fuck? I grumbled out loud as I picked back up the phone, reading the name, private, yet again. Hello? I answered, making damn sure the annoyance in my voice was obvious and to the point. Hello? Answered the caller, an assertive yet confused-sounding man's voice that was completely unfamiliar to me. Yeah, who is this? I responded, getting more annoyed as I began to suspect this may actually be a prank call. Hello? The voice said yet again, his tone completely unchanged. You called me, I said, the annoyance in my voice becoming ever more apparent. Hello, he said once more. This is getting pretty damn ridiculous, I thought to myself. Fuck off, I said matter-of-factly, as I promptly pressed the red end button on the phone screen. I put the phone back on nightstand and got up, walking to the bathroom to take a piss. As I stood there, still feeling completely unrested, I started to doze off before I was sprung back awake at the sound of Ozzy shredding metal once again. Shit! I cursed out loud as the sudden shock caused me to piss all over the toilet seat. I finished and cleaned up quickly and stormed back over to my nightstand. I picked up the phone to once again see the name private. Son of a bitch, I said aloud as I answered and screamed into it as loud as I could. Stop calling me. Hello, he said yet again. I screamed a primal growl into the phone and ended the call once again. This time I put it to silent, laid back down, and buried my face into my pillow, trying my best to go back to sleep. Eventually, I did finally manage to sleep, until suddenly, I awoke to the sound of a classic telephone ring. What? I said to myself as I looked over to my nightstand. There, instead of my smartphone, was an old-timey rotary telephone. It rang and rang and rang, the sound reverberating louder and louder to the point that I could literally feel the vibrations in my ears. With my hands shaking, I reached for the telephone and gripped it tightly. I swallowed hard and put it to my ear. Hello? I answered, quiet fear in my voice. All I could hear was deep, raspy breathing, as though death itself was calling me. I sat there in silence for about 5 seconds, until it finally said the words. Hello? The voice this time was lower in pitch and somewhat distorted. I pulled the phone away from my ear and stared at it. When it said again in a booming voice so loud that it sounded like it was on speakerphone, Hello? I quickly hung the phone up, but as soon as I slammed it down, a long-fingered hand attached to a long, skinny arm suddenly grabbed my own. I screamed from the shock of it when suddenly another hand covered my mouth and a deep, raspy, distorted voice said in my ear, "Hello?" I sat up quickly, awakening from the terrible nightmare I had just experienced. Sweat dripped down my forehead as I breathed hard and labored breaths. "What the hell was that?" I said to myself, trying to understand the meaning behind this bizarre dream. I picked up my phone to check the time, when my mouth became as dry as a desert when I saw what was on the screen. 99 missed calls. Voice mailbox full. I just sat there in silence and stared at what was on my screen. I didn't even bother to check the voicemails, as I knew in my gut what each one said. Then, as I had expected, a silent call from Private appeared on the screen. Apprehensively, I answered the call and whispered, "Hello?" There was a brief moment of silence, and then I started to hear quiet, shallow breathing. Eventually, the caller said that damned word. "Hello?" "What do you want?" I asked, my voice trembling with terror. "Hello?" it asked once again, exactly the same as it had seconds before. "Hello?" I answered this time. There was another brief moment of silence. "Hello?" it responded. Not a question this time, but a statement. I swallowed at this sudden change in tone. Out of nowhere, the stranger ended the call and didn't call back the rest of the night. Unfortunately, by that point, I was too confused and scared shitless to fall back to sleep until a good 3 hours later. It was about 10 a.m. that morning that I woke up, feeling like absolute shit, and noticed that there was an unread text message from an unknown number. Attached to the message was an image, a simply horrifying image. I couldn't even begin where to understand what it was that I was seeing. It was a man, a freakishly tall man taking a selfie in front of a door. The man so extremely tall and had arms that were so unbelievably long that you could see him from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet. The abnormality of his height and limbs, however, had nothing on his face. His eyes were huge saucers of white, with large dilated pupils staring directly into the camera, which made it feel like he was staring directly at me, as though he were actually staring at me. He also brandished a deeply disturbing smile, his mouth showing 2 rows of huge, cartoonishly large and white teeth, his lips thin and nearly non-existent, and stretched literally from ear to ear. His nose was long and hooked downward, like the witch from Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs, and his ears were large and pointed like a goblin. There was no hair on his head, and his skin was as white as glue. My hand trembled horribly as I held the phone, trying my absolute best to comprehend the disturbing image my eyes were witnessing. I was eventually able to pull away from his disturbing face and move down the picture to realize that the man was completely naked. An inhumanly skinny body showed just about every bone in his body was ready to rip right out of his skin. I'll spare you the details of his exposed regions. As my eyes moved past the image itself, I read the actual text message itself. "Hello." Suddenly, another image was received, and my mouth became dry as bones. The image was a full shot of my front door, the address number above my mailbox in the shot and all. I jumped up and quickly, but quietly, hurried to the living room and looked over at the door, staring at it and feeling my heart racing. I began to tiptoe closer, trying my best not to make a sound and risk revealing my exact location. I placed my ear to the door and listened closely, when I suddenly heard the muffled sound of the man's voice from behind the door. "Hello," he said, the same as he did over the phone. Suddenly, he began knocking. I let a small sound of shock slip out, and he began pounding louder. Bang, bang, bang. "Hello? Hello? Hello?" He kept slamming the door with what I assumed was his fist, screaming hello over and over again. I ran to the kitchen and grabbed the biggest, sharpest knife that I could find, and slowly re-entered the living room. I've got a weapon," I shouted, trying my best to sound intimidating and failing miserably. You'd better get off my property before I use it, you freak." The knocking and the hellos stopped briefly, and then started again, even louder and faster. At this rate, I knew he was definitely going to break the damn door down. My immediate thought was to run back to my bedroom, lock the door, and call the police. I called 911 to report a strange man harassing me, and dispatch informed me that they'd be sending someone to help as soon as possible. I heard the ominous sound of wood breaking, and at that point, I knew that he had broken through. "Please hurry," I screamed at the dispatcher. Suddenly, I received another text from the stranger, and this time a photo of my bedroom door was attached. "Please remain calm," said dispatch. "Someone will be there soon." The call ended as the phone died. I had forgotten to charge it before I went to bed, and with all of these calls and texts I'd been receiving all night and morning, whatever battery was left had finally drained out completely. Now I'm sitting in the corner of my bedroom, waiting for someone to come and save me. I've written down my experience here so that even if I don't survive this encounter, it's at least on record. At least people will know what happened to me. Even now, the man is still beating on my bedroom door. I expect it won't be too much longer before he breaks through. He just keeps pounding, and he's still saying hello.